This is the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast, presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast, presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. I'm joined by Kyler Staley. I'm Drew Rosenberg. We have a big show today, a lot to talk about. Hoosier Hysteria this weekend, homecoming weekend as well. So a lot of Indiana basketball, football talk. Kyler, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm cold. I'm cold in Indiana right now. I know you're coming from Boston. I don't know what it's like over there, but I'm freezing right now. The past few days in Indiana, it's been like pre-winter. I swear it has been.
Yeah, it's been like 40s, 50s here, so not like too bad, which I can't complain about. But I was after last week when I made fun of you for the pink. You had to make sure it came out. I feel like camo is about as opposite of pink as you can get.
Yep, I'm rocking the camo sweatshirt. It's actually one of my favorite sweatshirts, so super comfortable. But I'm mostly wearing it because it's freezing. I refuse to turn on my heat right now. I refuse to do it. Trying to save some money, but yeah. Also, for all you people listening right now, as you can probably tell, Drew has a new mic. He sounds so much better than what he used to. So everybody in the comments, make sure you hit that subscribe button first, but then go into the comments and congratulate Drew on his new mic.
Yeah, there had been quite a few comments talking about the need for a new mic, and I acknowledge it. I did. Amazon Prime Day came along, had no sponsorship, nothing. If Amazon wants to sponsor us, Jeff Bezos, please do. But
Please do.
I mean, I had to take advantage. But let's jump right in. We're recording on Wednesday. Earlier today, Eric Reed, Indiana basketball, 4-star target, committed to UConn. Not too surprising, but still disappointing loss for the program.
Yeah, definitely not too surprising, especially the last few days. I would say it definitely the winds really shifted towards UConn, and I always thought that UConn was probably the team to beat here when it came to Eric Reed's recruitment. But that's just not to say. I mean, I'll tell you this. I mean, Indiana they pushed for him. They offered him what last year, and things were pretty quiet for a little bit. Then they really ramped it up when it came to the spring, summer, and I mean, like, honestly, it's just like one of those things where I know it's frustrating from an Indiana's fan, standpoint. Just the fans want to see these guys committed and things like that. But it's just like it's a lot of guys that they're going after. There's going to be a lot of losses. And looking on the bright side, honestly, you got Trent Sisley already committed, so that's really good right now. And obviously, when it comes to bigs, Mike Woodson's done a good job the past 2 years when it comes to the transfer portal. So it ain't panic mode right now. Eric Reed, great player, a lot of potential, a lot of upside, but it's not really make or break when it comes to Indiana and what their incoming class next year is going to be like. He's going to go on. He's going to have really good success. With UConn, he's going to fit their style really well. But I think if you're an Indiana fan, just don't panic or anything like that. Just kind of, be excited for this upcoming season and see what Michael Woodson can do in the transfer portal next year.
Yeah, you made a good point about the portal and Woodson's success at bigs. The last 2 years, he's landed the top bigs in the portal both times. It's Khalil Ware the first time, Umar Ballo this year. So it's one of those things. Older, established bigs, they've seen what Woodson's been able to do with guys like Race Thompson, Trey Jackson Davis, even Malik Renew's development from his freshman year to his sophomore year, and now Khalil Ware. They see that. Balla talked about it, how that it was a big reason for him coming. He played against Ware when Ware was in Oregon. He said it was a completely different player he saw at Indiana. So I don't think Woodson is ever going to have trouble landing bigs in the portal just because of that. And Malik Renew still will have eligibility. So there's a good chance he comes back unless he has a massive year this year and leaves for the draft or maybe transfers, but I don't see him transferring. I don't see that very as likely of him transferring. So I think there's a good chance Reeb saw that, like, I might get buried on the depth chart.
Yeah, and I don't think that he was going to be unless, all those guys left. Ballo's leaving due to graduation. Langdon Hatton's probably out. Dallas James, not really a non-factor in this kind of scenario. But there was definitely playing time for him. There definitely was. But I think, honestly, the vision with UConn is, I think, just basically how Dan Hurley runs his system and his style and everything. I could totally see Eric Reed being a day one starter for them. and fitting that system extremely well. And if you think about it, other than Malik Renew, Mike Woodson's never really had a young big man that he's gotten, his freshman year and had him for multiple years, other than Malik. Malik's really the only one. You think about Khalil, Omar Ballo, even Trace and Race, those guys were kind of, already college experienced. And I think in today's day and age or whatever, unless you've got a surefire big that's just, you have no choice but to play him, like a Derek Queen, somewhere like that. I think the best bet is to go into the transfer portal and get more experienced big men, guys that have been in a few years of college basketball. So, again, not a panic button situation, type of situation, but it certainly is a miss. But we'll see. They got Braylon Mullins coming up. That'll be next week. By the time we record next time, we'll know where he's going to go. This Indiana recruiting class still probably has a chance to be really good if they're able to land Mullins. Just be glad that you have Trent Sisley right now, or else it would be kind of panic button in some sense.
Yeah, it seems perfect segue to jump into Braylon Mullins. It's starting to, I guess, seem like I have no inside knowledge, but the tea leaves kind of seem like they're shifting. Like UConn seemed like Indiana's battle to lose for the longest time, and I mean Dan Hurley, back-to-back national titles, he's not someone that can, you can play around with. He's someone that can land big recruits, and he's done it consistently since taking over at UConn. What are you kind of hearing about Braylon Mullins' recruitment now?
I don't really know exactly. That's kind of weird to say. I don't know anything, but I wouldn't say it's a surefire one way or the other right now. I still think it is still a two-team race. I think it's UConn, Indiana. I don't think North Carolina's anywhere close. I think they're a pretty distant third. Braylon Mullins on fall break this week. Time for him to really, make that decision. He probably already has the decision, but honestly kind of relax. And, it was a really, really busy process. You could say that, Braylon Mullins, one of the biggest stock risers in the 2025 class, pretty much had every single school reaching out to him, offering him. So it's been extremely, extremely, I would say probably overwhelming at times for him and his family. So you're down to the final three. You got your decision coming up next week. It's been a long recruitment. Like you said, Indiana, they really recruited him since day one in a lot of ways. The guy that's in their backyard. So if they were to lose out on him, it is going to be tough. That's going to be a tough one to swallow a little bit. But you also got to look on not the bright side, but the other side. UConn, Dan Hurley, they made Braylon Mullins a priority as well. They really recruited him and really, really wanted him in their system. So obviously there's the factor of Darius Adams, who's already committed to UConn, who him and Mullins kind of play similar styles. So that could play a factor as well. But right now, I don't think there's one way or the other right now. And I think things are kind of quiet, even though you do see a little bit of crystal ball selections or some rumblings that may be UConn. I still think until Braylon Mullins makes his decision, nobody will really know what the answer is.
Yeah, it kind of feels a little bit like the Jalen Harrelson recruitment, especially coming down, I guess, to the wire. Really, no one really had a definitive clue where he was going. I mean, it seemed like Indiana had a very good chance, and he ultimately wound up with Notre Dame. Yeah. So Mullins, I mean, I think you and I are both going to probably have a podcast immediately after either way for Mullins' commitment, whether he commits or not, just because it is Wednesday. But for all things, I guess, Mullins' commitment, we're going to have you covered in the lead up and immediately after. But jumping into a little more positive note right this weekend, Hoosier Hysteria, big week for Indiana basketball. I want to start off on the recruiting track. Kyler, some key targets going to be in attendance for IU basketball.
Yeah, it's Hoosier Hysteria weekend finally, the unofficial start, I guess we'll say, for Indiana basketball. We'll call this one day zero. Week zero, you know how kind of like football is week zero. But anyway, talking to myself right now. But yeah, so there's some targets that's going to be in attendance. Usually for Hoosier Hysteria, it's a lot of the local talent. It's usually a lot of the young guys, the freshmen, the sophomores in the state, the ones that are kind of on Indiana's radar right now. I want to get them on campus a little bit and just kind of, have them in attendance. It's really big for that. We've seen multiple times, Trent Sisley, Braylon Mullins, Jalen Harrelson, those guys came to Hoosier Hysteria, kind of one of their first kind of starts there. When it comes to, Indiana recruiting them. But as far as confirmed names right now, Hoosier Illustrated, we have confirmed so far that Noblesville shooting guard Justin Curry, he's going to be in attendance. And then Plainfield wing Noah Smith, a 2020 both 2026 prospects, and then EJ Hazlitt, another 2026 prospect. Still, in that wing area, he's going to be there in attendance. He's from Franklin Central, Franklin Central, and then one of the bigger ones, a name that you probably want to put on your radar, a name to remember is 2027 guard Jason Gardner Jr. out of Fishers. So a guy that Indiana started to get some eyes on a little bit over the summer. He really popped off a little bit when it comes to the 2027 class, playing for Indiana Elite. So he's actually going to be on an unofficial visit that same weekend. So he'll be in attendance. But I'm sure, leading up in the next, next day or so, we'll get a little bit more names, confirmed on that end. But so far, it seems like it's a pretty solid core of targets that are going to be in attendance.
Yeah, I'm sad I'm not going to be there. I mean, last year was my first time covering. I know I couldn't get out. I tried. I really did try to get out to Indiana for this weekend, but I couldn't make it work. Exams, all that stuff. But really, I mean, it's a lot of fun. Am I wrong? They're bringing back the scrimmage this year?
They are bringing back the scrimmage this year for the first time, and man, maybe like since Woodson's first year, I want to say somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Well, yeah. Well, Woodson's first year was kind of weird because it was like the end of COVID year, so I don't remember.
Don't remember. Anyway, it is back, so that's definitely something that team, a lot of fans wanted to see the past few years or so, just because it's a good time for Indiana, the fans to kind of see these guys on the floor for the first time. And I know you've got the Tennessee scrimmage coming up in the next couple of weeks, but this was just a good time. You're not going to see a whole lot. If there's a sore player that's feeling his legs feeling a little painful or something that day, you're probably not going to see them on the floor. But it will be nice just to see those guys on the floor for the first time. Obviously, the skill competitions. The entrances, everyone loves the entrances, and obviously you got the women's team as well that's going to be doing their thing. So it should be a pretty fun event. I'm actually really sad that there's no concert this year. Which
that was
a little off, but maybe just wasn't in the budget this year. I don't know, but it'll still be a good event. I think there's a lot of excitement, going on with this Indiana team this year, and I think a lot of fans are going to be really, really pumped to see these guys on the floor for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite's always 3-point contest. My pick last year, I think, came in second with Yarden Garzon. I'm going to run it back. If she's in it again, that's my pick to win it. But this is a perfect time to say this. PSA for all the fans, everyone who's going to be watching at Hoosier Hysteria for the scrimmage, don't put any stock into anything.
Yeah.
If a guy comes out and hits if Mackenzie Mbako comes out and hits 4 threes, great. Does not matter. If Malik Renew comes out and goes 0 for 10. Again, does not matter. It is a scrimmage 2 weeks before the season actually starts. Do not put stock into this stuff because there is no reason to. I mean, it's going to be great to see them play, but again, the season has not started. They still have exhibitions, including the one against Tennessee, which I love that they're doing that because, you get a game against a very good program. Rick Barnes has consistently built Tennessee into a very good tournament team every year. So it'll be a good test and get to see kind of where they're at, like immediately before the season even starts.
Yeah, and you say don't buy stock in Hoosier Hysteria. I will also say don't buy stock in the Tennessee game. I mean, you can buy a little bit of stock there because it's against a different opponent or whatever. But same time, I always go back to last year. Alabama beat Purdue last year in this charity scrimmage, and Purdue was one of the best teams, throughout the whole entire season. When it comes to the Tennessee scrimmage, it's going to be the same thing. Mike Woodson's going to play the guys that are healthy. I think all the scholarship guys are going to get some playing time, and I think there's going to be a lot of different lineups that Mike Woodson's going to try to use, see what works, what doesn't work, or whatever. So Indiana could get blown out that game.
Yeah.
They could blow out Tennessee. It could be a close battle. It does not matter. You want to see some positive things, but at the same time, if there are negative things, the college basketball season is extremely, extremely long. So don't buy stock into this. In Hoosier Hysteria scrimmages, don't buy stock into the charity scrimmage. I think it'll play itself out. So it's exciting. That's crazy that basketball season's already here. It is crossover season. And I don't know if I'm ready yet, Drew.
I love it. It's my favorite time of year. And the NBA kicks off next Tuesday. Indiana alum OG Anunoby making the Knicks making their season debut against the reigning defending NBA champions, as they raise that banner, number 18, the Boston Celtics. As everyone, I'm sure you guys are aware, is, Ant Wright made fun of me for, Kyler, you've made fun of me for. I've gotten made fun of a lot on this podcast, so any chance I get to bring up, the Celtics have 18 championships, one more than your Los Angeles Lakers, Kyler, I'm going to do it. But yeah, OG will be making his season debut. I think Khalil Ware will make his debut the next night. And real quick, I mean, this isn't even in the agenda for the podcast today. I do want to touch on this. Khalil Ware has looked awesome in the preseason.
Yes, he has.
And I mean, it's starting to look like he could be the steal of the draft. You and I both said it. Like, fit-wise, Miami was perfect. They have a foundational culture similar to like what Mike Woodson brought to the table of making sure and holding guys accountable. That's what Eric Spoelstra, Pat Riley, that's what the Miami Heat organization is. And so far, it looks great. It looks like he can be a guy that can just step in and play alongside Bam immediately. I'm really excited to see how Khalil Ware kind of comes out as rookie.
Awesome is the right word, because yes, he has looked phenomenal. This goes back to the summer league as well. He dominated that.
Yeah.
In the preseason games, he's looked great. Brian Windhorst, the ESPN analyst, he even touched on it a little bit. He said, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit here. Let's not get way too ahead of ourselves. But Khalil Ware, he is looking like the steal of the draft. I totally agree with you, Drew. And honestly, we're pretty biased. We are an IU podcast, but at the same time, it's like you look how lackluster this NBA draft was this past year. You had some guys that, not a lot of people knew, a lot of international talent, but Khalil Ware just right outside the lottery, the number 15 pick. I think it is perfect for him. And I think for what I've seen, at first I was a little hesitant to think that him and Bam could play together, but I think Khalil Ware could play very, very well alongside Bam and Kevin Love, for that matter of fact. And I think he's going to be great. I think he should be a favorite to be on the first team all-rookie team. Yeah. I think, as the season goes along, depending on the minutes, which it looks like he's going to get a lot of minutes, depending on the minutes, I think he could be competing for NBA Rookie of the Year. No, that's way ahead of ourselves a little bit, but he is he's looking like a steal. And you got to give a lot of credit to Mike Woodson for getting a lot of this out and showing his true potential, because I think he's going to be a really, really good player in the NBA for a really, really long time.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned, we both mentioned it, his fit with Bam. I mean, when he came into the draft, my take about Khalil Ware was, worst case scenario, he's going to be a very good weak side rim protector, which every team in the NBA wants. I mean, You saw a guy like Rudy Gobert, who is probably the best at in the league. Maybe Wembanyama has him now, but Rudy Gobert is getting paid a lot of money. He doesn't have the best offensive game, but he is so good as a weak side rim protector that he gets so much money, wins Defensive Player of the Year, what feels like every year. Ware has all the tools to be very good, but then you look, the jump shot looks like it's translated very well. And him and Bam, they both are great at finishing above the rim, but Bam's probably a better ball handler. Ware's a better shooter, but it's one of those things. They can play together, play off each other, that kind of buddy ball that Ware and Renew had at Indiana. I could see some of that. I could even see Bam Adebayo pick and rolls with Ware, just because Bam is such a good ball handler for his size.
Yeah, and honestly, you look at this, you compared it, Bam, Rudy Gobert, those are two really good comparisons. Khalil Ware, in my opinion, is a lot more versatile than what those guys are. He can stretch the floor, still a really, really good rim protector. I'll tell you what, I think a lot of teams are going to have fits when they have to play the Miami Heat, and you've got both Bam and Ware, guarding the bucket there. So, no, I'm excited to see what Khalil Ware does. I'm really excited to see him go up against, the veteran NBA bigs, to see what he can do, see how they match up with him, and see what he can just do against those guys. So it's going to be exciting. It's pretty exciting, honestly, when you look at what Trace Jackson Davis did last year. Then you have Khalil, who's projected to be really, really good this season as well. So I'll tell you what, I think a lot of Indiana fans, when Golden State Warriors play the Miami Heat, I think a lot of them are going to be tuned in to see that matchup. That's going to be a really, really fun matchup.
Yeah, I also want to add one more name who we just haven't brought up, Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's got a lot of hype from Lakers camp thus far. I mean, Hood-Schifino he was not like the most NBA ready guy coming out. He had all the tools to be a very, very good NBA player. Just unfortunately went to the Lakers, a team that's trying to win now, so there wasn't that much of a role. But in year two, expect to see his role grow, and he could become, a very, very good NBA player. I mean, we all watched him play. He has all the tools, great mid-range game, great feel for the game, great size and length for his position. So I'm really excited to see how Hood-Schifino looks in year two.
Yeah, and I think JJ Redick, he's came out and said he's excited to coach him. I think that's a guy that they would be able to build good chemistry with. I know a coach-player chemistry standpoint. I think JJ is going to really bring a lot out of Jalen. And Jalen fought some injuries last year. I thought he probably would have gotten a little bit more playing time, but injuries kept sneaking up on him. He spent some time in the G League. He did really, really well in the G League when he was healthy. But I think this year, kind of another rookie year for him. He's still going to kind of, have some hesitation, some learning moments, but I think he'll find a good spot for this Lakers team. I'm really excited to see what he can do this year, because we saw that one year with Indiana. He was spectacular. Number 17 pick in the 2022 class, whatever year it was. Yeah. Or 2023. That's when it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of potential. I'm excited to see him. I'm hoping all these IU guys stay healthy this year, because there's a good core of IU guys in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I really can't remember the last time I guess there was this many like IU guys in the NBA that were like key players on teams. Like there's always been a good, Indiana alumni in the league,
Yeah.
but there's a decent amount of guys who are set to make big impacts this year. But moving over to football now. This wasn't even on the agenda, but we had to add it. Coach Sig today was on the Pat McAfee show. I mean, we've talked about it. Pat McAfee, the whole show, they loves Coach Sig, and Coach Sig had some gems for quotes today. My personal favorite is him talking about the UCLA game and how on road games, he likes to get to the hotel as late as possible the night before. He's going to wake up and play the game. And this is what he said about the UCLA game. Get to the hotel around 8 at night, have dinner, went to bed, woke up, played at 3:30, and kicked their ass and went home.
Love that. Only Coach Signetti can say that. And he said it during Big Ten media days as well. He goes, for these road games, this ain't a vacation or whatever. This is a business trip. We're here to kick someone's ass, and that's what he does. But you mentioned it. It was a fun. If you've had a chance to watch it, anybody needs to go back and watch it, because it was really, really fun interview. Pat McAfee and his crew love Coach Sig, and it's just crazy that Indiana football is getting this much hype. It really is surreal. Even though we've seen it for a little bit now, it's still very surreal that Indiana is one of the hottest teams in the country right now, one of the most talked about teams in the country, and that's all thanks to Kurt Signetti, just what he's done with the program.
Yeah, Monday Night Football too, Joe Buck and Indiana alumni, and now, Troy Aikman, who is the biggest fan of Carl Signetti. For those who don't know, Aikman mistakenly called Kurt Signetti Carl, but it's really fun to see this, that, this program has national attention, and Signetti emphasized the point. Pat McAfee tried to congratulate him, and he was pretty much shut it down. No, no congratulations yet. We're only halfway through the race. Signetti understands that 6-0 it's just a start. Mikhail Kamara, after the Northwestern game, had a very similar quote, talking about how 6-0 was not the goal. The goal is go out and win a national championship. So it's a lot to be excited about, but my favorite part is definitely the mentality of this team.
Yeah, and sticking with the Pat McAfee show for a second, Pat McAfee talked about how College Game Day, they've got their eye on Bloomington. So as long as Indiana's still winning, Cignetti's still doing his thing, and he's leading this group of Hoosiers. I think you're going to see a College Game Day in Bloomington, which will just be phenomenal. You've already got big noon kickoff coming in this weekend with the Nebraska game. You've got the Barstool guys coming in. It's going to be a great weekend. It really is. It starts off with Hoosier Hysteria, then obviously goes into the homecoming game. So it's just fun. It's fun to be an Indiana football fan right now. And usually about this time, the season, usually the fans are like, all right, let's get ready for basketball season. Right now, I think they want to stick with football season for as long as they possibly can. It's a really, really fun time if you're an IU fan.
Yeah, and all sports. I saw I don't know how many teams, there was like 4 or 5 maybe. Indiana is one of only a few teams to have their men's basketball team in the top 25, their women's basketball team in the top 25, and their college football team in the top 25. Three big programs. And quick shout out, Indiana soccer also upset Michigan last night. I think it was 5-0. Massive win for them too.
There we go.
So, great time right now to be an Indiana Hoosier if you're a sports fan, especially. But moving into this weekend, you mentioned it. Homecoming weekend, big crowd, sellout, Nebraska, 5-1. Dylan Raiola, going to be a tough game. I think the Hoosiers are right now 5.5 or 6.5 point favorites, which I think could be mistaken. It's the closest spread since UCLA. Does that sound right?
Could be somewhere around there.
Yeah. Okay. But either way, this is a very good Nebraska team. Their only loss was on the road at a ranked Illinois team, and that game was in overtime. So it's going to be a very tough test for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, this is the biggest game that they have so far. This will be the best team that they've played so far this season. It's great that this is a sold out game because I think the crowd's going to play a big factor there. I think the buzz inside Memorial Stadium, the electricity throughout the whole Bloomington area, I think that's going to be a big factor in this game. Nebraska is a really, really good team. You mentioned their quarterback, the people that call him the fake Patrick Mahomes or whatever.
Patrick Mahomes cosplayer.
Yeah, he's still good, still really, really good.
Yeah.
I would say he's definitely one of the more talented quarterbacks in the Big Ten, if not the country.
Yeah.
So, and Nebraska's defense is going to be tough as well. So this is probably going to be the toughest defense that Indiana's played, so far this season. But it's a big game. It's a big fight feel in a lot of ways. So you kind of get that sense, if Indiana were to win this game, things are going to get a lot more serious. Right now it's just like it's really fun to root for Indiana. They're number 16 in the nation, blah, 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 and stuff. But I think if you're able to beat Nebraska, I think you're going to wake up a lot of the national media and a lot of other people that are fans of college football and be like, well, this Indiana team's really legit. And especially if they're able to do it in a dominating fashion, which I'm not saying that's probably going to be a little bit of a stretch. I think this is going to be a challenging game, at all 4 quarters. I don't think this is going to be a blowout by any means, but Kirsten Netty's going to have these guys prepared, no doubt. I mean, these guys know they don't get way ahead of themselves. They don't let the moment get too big for them. So I think the defense is going to be ready to play. They're going to be ready to make a statement. The offense, I think Curtis Rourke, he's going to have those guys, going, just going confidently like he's had them going all season. So it's a big game, man. It really is. And there's really not a whole lot of words you can put into how massive this game is.
It's a prove-it game at the very least. This is a very good Nebraska team. They are currently 7th in the entire country in points allowed on defense.
Yep.
You mentioned, we talked a little bit about Dylan Raiola, but 5-star. He is a freshman. And with Raiola, there's been times, he has looked like a freshman. But at other times, you're looking like, this guy is a freshman. He's 18, 19 years old. I don't know exactly how old. He's a young guy. Only 3 interceptions on the year, protects the ball. Nebraska as a team does a very good job of protecting the football. But Dylan Raiola is a big part of it. He doesn't make that many mistakes, especially as a freshman. In that defense, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they've allowed a passer over 250 yards this year. Curtis Rourke has only been below that number once, so something's got to break. Rourke has been on fire, to say the least, this season. I mean, he is, putting his name in the Heisman conversation, which if you told even the biggest Indiana homers in the world 7-8 weeks ago that Curtis Rourke would be in the Heisman running, I think they would think you're crazy. And Rourke has shown that, he is the guy, the Curtis Pork memes. He's starting to buy into that, which is kind of funny to see on Twitter.
Don't get me started on those. I think those are lame.
It's so goofy. I just don't even know how that started or what that whole thing is, but it's good to see that he's like bought into it a bit. But it is going to be a really big test for Indiana, and especially for the run game. Nebraska's rush defense is allowing just 2.7 yards per carry. How does Tyson Lawton, Justice Ellison, how are they able to get going? Because that's been the key to the offense. We put a lot of it on Rourke, and Rourke has been exceptional, but it's been the run game that's really helped open up the pass.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, this is you talk about prove it game. This is a prove it game for Curtis Rourke in a lot of ways too. Because if he's able to put up massive numbers this game, he's definitely for sure in that conversation of Heisman winner or whatever. But I mean, obviously, it's going to be pretty difficult. There's a lot of talented guys out there right now that are probably the steady favorite when it comes to Heisman stuff. But Curtis Rourke, I mean, he's been a guy. He still feels a little bit under the radar to me. So does this Indiana team in a lot of ways. So. Prove it game. It really is. But let me ask you a tough question, Drew, and you probably won't have the answer for this. But let's say if Indiana does lose, what does that do to the season? What do you think it does, as far as the momentum that Indiana has? Is it a down point? Is it a super down point? Or is it just kind of like one of those things where you got to pick yourself back up and just keep going and see what else happens?
So I do think it would be a, big disappointment, sold out crowd, homecoming, Hoosier Hysteria weekend. big noon kickoff and the Barstool kickoff all, in attendance, it would be, a major disappointment to lose. I'm going to start by saying that. But again, it's not the end of the world. It's year one for Kurt Signetti. There's still 5 other games on the schedule. If Indiana does lose, I do think it, I don't want to say it destroys the college football playoff hopes, but those playoff hopes become very, now you got to beat Ohio State to, probably have a chance.
Yep.
Versus, it's kind of iffy, but this is one of those games where it depends. It's one of those things how you lose. If it's a, high scoring or, back and forth game, Indiana loses a close one, it's one thing. But if Indiana comes out, lays an egg, and gets just dominated by Nebraska after the bye week, it's going to be, look in the mirror, and they're going to have to bounce back and, I don't want to say right the ship, because, you're still 6-1 and it's Indiana football. So it's hard because, for the year, if you told us they're 6-1 after a loss in Nebraska, we're ecstatic. But now we're here, and it's like, okay, it's not that we're expecting them to win. Well, we are expecting them to win. It's just, Signetti has built the program so quickly into that. So now there is the expectations versus before that there wasn't before.
I feel like in a lot of the Indiana fan base, I still think in the back of their head, it's just like, okay, now when's the sad point going to happen this season? Yeah. I still think that they have that in a lot of ways. And this is it's uncharted territory. That's what we're in right now with this Indiana team. We've never really seen anything like this. And like you said, it's crazy to think that as Indiana fans, the fan base, they expect winning right now. And that's what Cignetti's done. He's way ahead of schedule on this rebuild, way ahead of it. So, it will be disappointing if Indiana were to lose this game, but at the same time, it's going to feel like one of the biggest victories of the entire program if they are able to beat Nebraska, especially if they do it in a dominant way or not. It's just such a big game. It really is, and you really can't put into words how big it is.
I just want to emphasize the fact that we're even talking about this, that it would be a huge disappointment if Indiana football lost this game, and it's against a 5-1 Nebraska team that's like 2 places outside the top 25. 3-4 years ago, even last year, you expect to lose these games if you're Indiana football. It was just, the culture, the history, and Signetti's talked about it, changing the culture, changing the mindset. And the fact we're even having this conversation of how big of a disappointment would it be just shows he's done a great job in changing the mindset.
Yeah, he has, and we've mentioned it countless of times. The players have just bought into it. That's exactly what it is, and they're treating Indiana like a football program, like a school, like a football school in a lot of ways, and that's what they needed. That's exactly what they needed for this, and he's going to have his guys ready for this game, and it's going to be fun to see a sold-out Memorial Stadium. It really is. I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere.
All right, before we wrap up, Kyler, I want to get your prediction for the game. Score prediction, the current spread is 6.5 with the over-under at 50.5. What's your score prediction? Who wins? And then I'll give mine before we wrap.
Yeah, I'm going to go with I think Indiana covers. I think they do. I have no reason not to believe that they don't cover, honestly, in a lot of ways. So I can see them winning by 14 plus. Honestly, I think it's still going to be a very, very challenging game. But I think the energy, I think the players are going to feed off of that. And I think it's just going to be a really, really tough environment for Nebraska. And I also think it's going to be a high-scoring game as well. I think Nebraska is going to put up some points. So I'm going to go with the over as well.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a little closer. I just think I do think Indiana wins. I'm gonna start by that. I just think both teams coming off the bye week, they've had a extra week to game plan for each other. I think usually when that happens, you get a very exciting football game. My score prediction, I think Indiana does pull it out. I think it's gonna be 31-27. I think the Nebraska defense, it's good, and I think it might give Indiana some fits. It's first, and I think they're going to be the first team to hold the Hoosiers to under 40 points since FIU, which, think about that. FIU has held Indiana, is the only team to hold Indiana under 40 all season.
And what's their record right now? Have you been keeping tabs on FIU?
They're 2-4. They play tonight, actually. Or I guess this will come out tomorrow. So they will either be 2-5 or 3-4 at this point, but they play a winless UTEP tonight.
Well, I'm hoping that they get a dub
Wednesday
there.
night. Yeah.
Hoping they get a dub there. So the question is is FIU, did we underestimate them or whatever, or did Indiana hold themselves to under 40 points? Honestly, you could ask that question. So But yeah, I think you're a little bit different on the different side. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it can be a shootout at some points, in those middle two quarters, the second and the third quarter. And then I think it'll settle down a little bit when it comes to the fourth quarter.
31-27 is still the over. So I just want to throw that out there.
There we go. There he goes. Speak to Drew. So bet with your own.
Don't listen to us. If you listen to us, you will probably lose more often than you win. Let's just get that out there.
Don't listen to us. We are not sponsored by DraftKings or anything like that, so we don't know what we're talking about. We just like football.
Yeah, we just we like to talk about it. We like to make predictions, and we like to have fun, and always we like to talk about Indiana sports. And for all things Indiana athletics, make sure you're following Indiana_FRN on Twitter, Facebook, and make sure you're checking out the HoosierIllustrated.com website. And make sure you're also subscribed on YouTube. I got a new mic, as Kyler mentioned earlier, so more reason. Kyler and I will have a post-game wrap-up show after Nebraska, Indiana wraps up this weekend. Next week, we'll have another podcast talking about probably recapping Hoosier Hysteria and everything Indiana. I know John Alden has In Touch with Indiana Sports 3 times a week. So much content on the YouTube, plus all the press conferences from players, coaches, and anything in between. Also, we've partnered with Tom Brady's company, Autograph, to streamline our coverage so you can do what you do best. Follow IU Sports. Use the code IndianaFR to get started today. As always, thank you for tuning in to the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast. We'll be back next week.